Hey everyone, Christina Simmons from Say Yes to Holiness here, and today I wanted to speak about something that in our world I think a lot of us struggle with, and I know I do as well, which is the fact that obedience actually leads to freedom. True freedom, in fact. And this is something of why it is a virtue. For when we are obedient, especially to God, we put Him first, then we are able to experience authentic freedom. In the Catechism, in paragraph 1900, it says, "The duty of obedience requires all to give due honor to authority and to treat those who are charged to exercise it with respect, and, insofar as it is deserved, with gratitude and goodwill." So practicing the virtue of obedience means simply that we are giving honor to the authority of God in everything that we do, and then also in trying our best to follow His will for us. And of course, this means that we follow His commandments. We are attentive to how it is that Jesus calls us, especially to live out the two great commandments, to love God with all our soul and all of our heart and all of our mind, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. And then, of course, to worship Him as He asks. The Blessed Virgin exemplified obedience. This is why the Church always will point to her and give her as our model, because she, through her obedience, she actually became the cause of salvation, not just for herself, but for all of us. And this is so important for us to remember, is that when we are being obedient, we're actually, obediere is the root of the word, and it means to listen. So when we listen and we respond, when we say yes, we give our yes. This is part of why I talk about say yes all the time, is because when we do that, then we are allowing God's will to come alive in our own lives. And Our Lady of Fatima said, "The Lord has designs of mercy upon us." Think about that. Designs of mercy. Mercy, misericordia, is to be compassionate, to walk with, to be in relationship with. And God does this because He only wants what is best for us. So therefore, no matter what He asks of us, then we ought to comply. Well, I've been struggling with this myself. I might have mentioned before about the fact that there's this project that's going on at church, and it's been almost like the bane of my existence. It's like every time I think that this is done, then there's a problem with it, and I have to go back and I have to do more work. And through the midst of this, over the last couple of months, because I've been working on this since early June, it's something of where it's just like originally it was really frustrating and it was irritating, but it was something of where I then brought it to our Lord. And I said, "Lord, this is obviously your will for me right now. I have no idea why this might be your will for me, but let me accept it. Let me be at peace with it, because I know that you only desire good for me." So I began to ask, Lord, our pastor says very often, "Lord, help me want what you want." And that was the prayer that I began to bring to our Lord. And was it just like that I was able to suddenly be able to, be obedient and to not be railing against the fact that this is what I had to be doing? No, absolutely not. But over time, it has happened. And this is something that I've been reflecting, especially in the last week and a half, because another major issue came up that had to be addressed with this project, and I was at peace with it. Was I irritated and upset that had to go back and redo work that had already been done and had been lost? Absolutely. But it quickly passed. And in the midst of that, I was like, "Lord, wow, these are your plans for me. So help me be obedient." And Mary really exemplifies that. Of course, she said yes at the Annunciation, and her obedience was to cooperate in God's plan for her life. When she conceived Jesus, she was literally forsaking her own plans, because she was now going to be a mother of a child that many people would think was born prior to her and Joseph being officially married. So all of the attendant kind of gossip and, judgment that goes with that. But then third is that she remained obedient to God's laws as well as the customs of the day throughout her life. So even though there were times when she and Joseph, they would go to the temple and they were only able to give 2 turtle doves. They weren't able to, to give, a lamb, but yet they went and were obedient. So you might be saying, well, Christina, what does this look like for us, practically in our lives? How can we live up to the example that Mary gave us? And practically, you can keep 4 things in mind. One is that you obey the commandments. That's where we got to start. We got to be living a life in which we are not in such significant sin that we are breaking those commandments. So looking at those 10 commandments and saying, all right, and as I said, the 2 great commandments, how well am I doing there? And if we're breaking one of the 10 commandments to begin with, we have to rectify that. The easiest way to rectify that is to make confession, to go to confession and receive the mercy that God desires to give you. So that's the second thing we can do is, 1, live in accordance with the 10 commandments, and in whatever way that we're struggling, then go to confession, receive that grace. Third, love God with all your heart. And it's in all the little things as well as the big things. But love him the best that you can. And the fourth thing is to make an accounting at the end of each day before you go to bed and say, Lord, this is what my day was like. This is how things went for me. And the easiest way to do that, we just celebrated the feast of St. Ignatius of Loyola on the 31st of July. And the examen is a very simple way that we can do that. We can give an accounting for our day. And the examen is very simple. You begin with gratitude, thanking the Lord for all of his blessings. You then review your day in light of how did I respond to God's grace and how did I not? And then saying you're sorry for the ways that you did not respond to his grace well. And then you make a resolution of, Lord, I'm going to try again tomorrow. And then you give him thanks as you go to bed. So that's a beautiful way that you are able to practice obedience and check and make sure that you are practicing obedience. Am I responding to God's grace, or am I refusing to listen to it, to not be obedient? So one of the biggest things that we struggle with, I think, with obedience is the fact that we resist it. Ever since the time that we were a 2-year-old and we're like, no, and we could say no, we do this constantly. So Mary's example gives us the model of the fact that all of what we do, and all the saints, in fact, give us this model, that we don't practice obedience out of drudgery. We don't practice it because we have to. Rather, we do it out of love. And when we do it out of love, then what happens is that we are freed. And how are we freed? Because we trust and we love God and the fact that he wants what's best for us. And we're able to obey him, to be obedient more fully, because we know that he cares for us. And when we trust and we love and we are obeying God, we offer ourselves wholeheartedly to his divine plan for us, like Mary did. Then what happens is that we experience the greatest and most lasting joy imaginable. And that's the joy of God in our daily life. So this is how obedience equals true freedom. It frees us from those things that are preventing us from being able to know his love, to know his joy for us in our lives. And we're able to, when we listen, obediere, when we're obedient, then we say yes to all the good things that he desires for us, because he knows the plans that he has for us. And they are plans of goodness and peace and hope. So I hope that this has helped you in being able to maybe look at some of the things that are going on in your life, and you might be railing against them. All of those things that you don't like, you didn't choose, you can't change, and you don't understand. Those are the places where our Lord is asking you, Listen to me, my child. Listen to me, my beloved son and daughter. Know that I have good plans for you. Know that I love you beyond measure and that I desire nothing but good for you. But let me help you respond. So that is what we have to do. We have to be obedient, listen, and let God do all things in our lives. If you're trying to figure out right now what it is that might be next in your life, you might be feeling a little kind of, is this all there is? Or you might be really trying to figure out, what is it that I need to be doing in my life right now? I'm not quite sure what my personal mission is. I speak about that very often, and that's a part of your personal vocation. Those three: call to holiness, which is say yes to holiness, is all about. We're constantly striving to become saints. And then the second, of course, is our state of life that most of us are pretty sure, and some of us might still be discerning that, and that's fine. But then the third is our personal mission. How is it that God is using us in a unique and unrepeatable way to be His presence in the world? And I'm going to be leading a mastermind coming up beginning this fall, and it's going to be focusing upon our personal vocation so that we can go deep and really come to an understanding of what our personal vocation in its fullness is, and then how do we live it out and help others do the same as we do it. So if you're interested in that, make sure to go and just send me an email. Christina Csemmens, ChristinaSemmens @gmail.com, and just send me an email and say, hey, Christina, send me more information about that, and I'll be glad to do that. Also, I'll have a link in the show notes about where it is that you can go and you can sign up. Send me an email, and I'll send you that information. But in a particular way, this is an opportunity for you with a group of other people who are being intentional about how is God calling me to live out the fullness of my vocation in daily life. Then this is the place for you. So reach out. And again, know of my prayers for you, especially that you are able to continue to do whatever it takes, so together we can tell the master of death, not today. Have a blessed one, everybody.